Rome, a name carved into the bones of history. A city whose shadow still stretches across continents, across centuries, across everything humanity has dared to build since. But among all the wonders that rose from the heart of this empire, one creation still towers above the rest. A monument so vast, so perfect, so brutally magnificent that even today it feels impossible. And yet, it was built almost 2,000 years ago, without machines, without steel, without modern science. Only with ambition, muscle, engineering genius, and the unshakable will of an empire determined to shape the world in its image. The Colosseum, a giant of stone, a theater of blood and sand, a machine designed not simply to entertain, but to command, to overwhelm, to remind the world that Rome did not rule with words alone, but with spectacle. But behind this perfection lies a story very few truly know. A story born from flames, from political desperation, from imperial propaganda, from the sweat of thousands and the roar of 70,000 voices demanding more. This is not the story of a monument. It is the story of an empire forging its identity in stone. Of a dream so massive, it reshaped the ruins of a fallen city. Of a structure that outlived the emperors who built it, the gladiators who died inside it, and the civilization that once worshipped it. Prepare yourself, because this is the Colosseum, as it has never been told, not as a ruin, not as a relic, but as the beating heart of a world that refused to fade. The story of the Colosseum does not begin with stone. It begins with fire. In the summer of 64 AD, Rome burned. For 6 days and 7 nights, flames devoured the greatest city on earth. Temples, markets, homes, entire districts collapsed into oceans of ember and smoke. As the city choked beneath a sky the color of molten iron, a whisper spread through the ashes. Nero did this. Whether he truly ordered the fire or simply seized the opportunity, one fact is certain. On the ruins of the city, he built a palace so extravagant, so obscene in its luxury, that it felt like an insult carved into the heart of a starving people. The Domus Aurea, the Golden House. A fantasy of lakes, gardens, marble halls, and a colossal statue of Nero himself towering over the city he ruled. Rome had lost everything, and its emperor built a playground. But empires shift quickly, and when Nero fell, a new ruler rose with a very different vision. Vespasian, the grizzled founder of the Flavian dynasty, understood something essential. Rome did not need another tyrant. Rome needed redemption. So, he made a decision that would rewrite the city's identity. He drained Nero's artificial lake. He tore down the last symbols of the emperor's ego. And in the place where one man once lived like a god, he ordered the construction of something for everyone. A public amphitheater. Vast, open, free. A gift to the people who had suffered. A promise that Rome belonged not to emperors, but to the crowd. But it was more than generosity. It was propaganda crafted in stone. A message to every citizen. The Flavians rule for you, and through this monument, they will be remembered forever. Here, on the ashes of arrogance, the Colosseum began. When Vespasian announced the creation of a new amphitheater, no one truly understood the scale of what he envisioned. Rome had seen great temples, towering aqueducts, and vast forums, but nothing like this. This project was not a building. It was a challenge to the limits of ancient engineering. The first task was monumental, transforming Nero's drained lake into solid, unshakable ground. Thousands of workers carved deep foundations into the earth, filling the pit with layers of compacted stone, volcanic ash, and concrete. Roman engineers understood the land, like surgeons understand the human body. They strengthened every weak point, shaped every contour, prepared every surface for the unimaginable weight that would soon rest above it. Then came the stone. Massive blocks of pale travertine were cut from the quarries of Tivoli, precisely squared and hauled toward Rome on wooden wagons pulled by teams of oxen. Each block weighed as much as a modern car, yet the Romans moved them with startling efficiency. On the construction site, wooden cranes powered entirely by human strength lifted the stones into place. Hundreds of men walking inside giant wheels, like living engines, generating the muscle needed to raise a world of stone skyward. But the true brilliance of the Colosseum was not its materials. It was its design. The entire structure was built like a massive puzzle of arches and vaults, each one supporting the next in perfect balance. This modular system allowed sections to rise simultaneously, slashing construction time without sacrificing strength. The outer shell of travertine provided beauty and durability, while the inner skeleton used lighter tuff and brick to reduce weight. Every decision blended artistry with practicality, mathematics with instinct. Rome was a civilization that understood time. It built for centuries, not years. And yet, in only 8 years, the amphitheater towered over the city, a feat modern architects still struggle to comprehend. Titus, Vespasian's son, oversaw the final stages, pushing the workforce day and night until the last stone was set, the last arch aligned, the last corridor sealed. When the scaffolding finally came down, the people of Rome stood stunned. A giant had risen from the earth, impossible, defiant, eternal. The Colosseum was ready for its first breath. When the Colosseum finally opened its 80 arched entrances, Rome surged into it like a living river. Families, soldiers, merchants, nobles, 70,000 souls, moving through stone corridors, engineered to swallow and release them with effortless precision. Within minutes, the seats filled, layer upon layer of humanity, arranged in a perfect pyramid of social order. The closer you sat to the arena, the more important you were. At the very top, the poor and the forgotten clung to the last rows, yet even they could not escape the thrill that pulsed through the air. And there, at the center of everything, lay the arena, a vast wooden stage covered with fresh sand, renewed again and again to soak up the blood that would follow. Its pale surface glowed under the sun, bordered by a high protective wall. But the true magic of the Colosseum lay beneath that sand. The Hypogeum, a labyrinth of corridors, rooms, cages, pulleys, and elevators, operated by teams of slaves hidden in the dark. This underground machine turned the arena into a world of controlled chaos. A trapdoor swung open, a lion sprang into the light, a platform rose, a prisoner appeared trembling in chains. A ramp unfolded, trees, temples, rocks emerged for staged battles. Everything was designed, rehearsed, orchestrated with deadly precision. And then the spectacles began. Morning, venationes, exotic beasts from Africa and Asia, lions, tigers, bears, ostriches, elephants, hunted to shock, to fascinate, to remind Rome that the world was theirs to command. The crowd roared as arrows flew, as nets tangled, as claws tore through flesh. Midday, executions. Condemned criminals reenacted myths, tragedies, heroic epics, each one ending in real death. Blood was not symbolic here, it was currency. Afternoon, the gladiators, the stars of the empire. Warriors trained to fight with artistry and brutality, their armor glittering beneath the sun. Every clash of shield and sword sent ripples through the massive theater. Sometimes the crowd chose mercy, sometimes it demanded death, and the emperor, seated in regal calm, lifted or lowered his hand, deciding the fate of men with a gesture. This was more than entertainment. It was control, a spectacle that fed the people, distracted them, united them beneath the empire's gaze. In Rome, power wasn't whispered. It was shouted across an arena stained with sand and blood. From the outside, the Colosseum was awe. From the inside, it was genius. The structure stretched 189 meters long and 156 meters wide, rising nearly 50 meters into the sky. But its magnificence wasn't merely size, it was design. Every stone, arch, corridor, and stairway served a function in a machine built not just for spectacle, but for efficiency. The most astonishing feature was the vomitoria, a network of tunnels and staircases that allowed 70,000 spectators to enter or exit the amphitheater in minutes. No crowding, no chaos, no bottlenecks. Rome built a stadium flow system so advanced that modern architects still copy it today. Inside, the cavea, or seating tiers, were carved with mathematical precision. Senators, citizens, freedmen, foreigners, each class had a designated section, enforced not by guards, but by architecture itself. Your seat wasn't just where you sat, it was who you were. Above the highest tier stood a forest of masts and pulleys. From them stretched the velarium, a gigantic fabric canopy operated by sailors of the imperial fleet. The men who once navigated storms now managed ropes and sails to protect spectators from the punishing Roman sun. With a single command, the arena transformed from a blazing cauldron into a shaded theater. And the details continued. Water channels connected to aqueducts, storage rooms tucked behind arches, workshops, animal pens, armories, staging areas, even hidden passages for priests, musicians, and performers. Nothing existed without purpose. The Colosseum was not a building. It was a system, a masterpiece of physics, logistics, acoustics, and crowd psychology. Stone, brick, and concrete fused with Roman precision to create a structure that functioned as flawlessly as it inspired. In the end, what stunned visitors wasn't just the violence on the sand. It was the realization that the Empire's greatest weapon wasn't its armies, but its engineering. For centuries, the Colosseum roared with life. But no empire is eternal, and neither are its spectacles. When the Western Roman Empire began to crumble in the 4th and 5th centuries, the games grew scarce. Money dried up. Gladiator schools closed. Exotic animals no longer reached the city that once commanded the world. The great engine of blood that had entertained millions now fell silent, its sand untouched, its corridors echoing with memories rather than screams. By the early 5th century, the last gladiatorial combats were held under Emperor Honorius. What followed was not a collapse, but a slow fading like a torch losing its flame. Christianity spread across the empire, and with it came a new moral lens. The same crowds that once cheered for slaughter now looked upon the arena with uneasy eyes. As centuries passed, the Colosseum changed hands and identities. In the Middle Ages, it became a fortress for noble families. Then it became a shelter for the poor. Then, a quarry. Stone by stone, piece by piece, its body was carved away to build churches, palaces, and monuments throughout Rome. Even St. Peter's Basilica contains bones of the Colosseum. Then came nature's final blow. The earthquake of 1349 tore entire sections from its outer ring, collapsing arches that had stood for over 1,000 years. Ivy and wild plants crept across the broken walls, turning the once mighty amphitheater into a wounded giant sleeping under a blanket of green. For a time, it seemed the Colosseum would vanish not through conquest, but through neglect. Yet even in ruin, it refused to die. Yet even shattered, the Colosseum refused to disappear. Its broken arches, weathered stones, and hollow corridors continued to stand an ancient heartbeat, pulsing beneath centuries of dust. People could destroy its walls, but they could not silence what it represented. By the 18th century, the papacy began to see the Colosseum not as a quarry, but as a sacred monument. Legends spread that early Christians had been martyred here. Whether true or not, the belief transformed the arena into a place of solemn memory. A cross was raised. A Via Crucis was installed. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Colosseum was protected rather than plundered. As Italy moved toward unification in the 19th century, the monument took on a new identity, no longer Roman, no longer religious, but national. It became a symbol of endurance, of identity, of a people rediscovering their past. Archaeologists, architects, and engineers worked tirelessly to stabilize its walls, remove debris, and reveal the hidden chambers that had slept beneath the arena for centuries. Stone by stone, layer by layer, the Colosseum was reborn. Today, millions walk through its gates every year. Tourists photograph what once echoed with death. Scholars study what once terrified kings. And without knowing it, they breathe the same dust that once rose under the sandals of gladiators, the same air that once vibrated with the roar of 70,000 voices. The Colosseum has survived emperors, invasions, earthquakes, and time itself. Not because it is made of stone, but because it is made of history. It is not ancient. It is eternal.